All right, what's up, guys? I hope everyone's well. Let's go through a few swings. And the first one is a gentleman who sent me in his swing from Instagram. He said it's okay to analyze it publicly here on YouTube. Kendall Wade. Let's see what Kendall's movement looks like here. So you can see he's real upright to start. A lot of the great pound for pound hitters started like this. And I think that uh, this is not something that if I just say to a hitter who doesn't have a great swing, be more upright and straight in your stance. It's not going to change things. I think it's more of a correlation to a great swing than it is causative of a great swing. And there are a lot of things in the baseball swing that are like that. In other words, I think that when you're more lead arm dominant, when you take a swing with just your lead arm, you tend to want to just be upright at the start. If I was going to tell you, hit this punching bag as hard as you can with just your lead arm swinging a bat, I think that most people would probably start in a pretty straightened, stance to start with. And then they would kind of move into it, and maybe they'd get more crouched as they go through the swing and then extend into the hit. But at the start, there's no reason to be real crouched. I think that today's popular swing is very crouched to start, and I just think that's wasted energy for the most part. So good start here. You can see just a very tiny backswing, and then the bat basically stops as he's heading forward. Now, this is the way he likes to do lead arm dominance. Maybe he discovered that he just likes to do this swinging a smaller bat with just his lead arm. That would be my question to him. Is this what you like to do with a smaller bat using just the lead arm? Typically, people don't. Typically there's a little bit more extension of that lead arm. There's more movement kind of flowing into this position here of the bat. In other words, think of a golfer. They take backswings for a reason. A backswing probably adds, I don't know what the figures are, I would say somewhere around 10 to 15% of the power is provided by the backswing. So I don't see any reason why in baseball you shouldn't take a backswing. It's the same sort of principle. So that would be my question. Is this really what you like, using just the lead arm? And I would at least experiment with getting it a little bit straighter, having a little bit of a backswing, meaning move the barrel into the backswing as well as moving the hands. And it doesn't have to be a lot. If you look at someone like Ken Griffey Jr., he didn't have a huge backswing, but it still was something. And then you can see the barrel's not extremely flat here. I would like to see it flatter, and that may come more from a backswing. It's the front humerus compression that really creates the flattening of the barrel. So I would want him to take swings with a small bat with just the lead arm. Figure out what movement do you really like. What movement truly will deliver the most force for you. If it ends up being something like this, then that's fine. But I would think that there'd be a little bit more movement, a little bit more of a backswing, maybe a little straighter of a lead arm, and definitely work on passing through that movement where there's front humerus compression. Just passing through somewhere where there's quite a bit of front humerus compression, so that we know we're getting a lot of the power from that upper back and upper shoulder of the lead side. Decent positioning there as we go into contact, but like I said, I think this can just be improved by the things that I mentioned earlier. Kind of an early release of the bat there. It's almost like just after contact you're releasing the bat. Makes me wonder, is there an injury? Maybe is that why you're letting go so quickly? Otherwise, you'd probably be better to let go somewhere around here. But it's hard to see the bat at this point. Looks like there might be just a little flip in this swing. But really, those things that I already addressed, great, are really the main things that I would inquire. And if you want to send your swing again after kind of working through these things, feel free to do so. But good complete finish here. I love that. So great job there. Overall, I like the stride movement. It's pretty aggressive. If you're going to be that aggressive in your stride, make sure you do have honed a secondary cushion. And maybe you'll find that maybe you don't need so much weight to be thrusted onto the front leg. Maybe you can have pretty much just as much power with a little bit less weight. Let's go on to the next swing. And now we'll do some pros here. So you guys wanted Jose Ramirez. This is the only righty swing I have of him. And he really does get a lot of his weight onto his front side in both swings. Both swings look so similar in Ramirez. Ramirez, let's look at his stats. He's a pretty decent hitter. Being sarcastic. The guy's just an absolute stud, huh? So he's got a 143 OPS plus this year. His career OPS plus is 130. I mean, it looks like the guy's probably headed towards the Hall of Fame. I know that that's it's kind of early to be saying that, but if he just puts in 6 more years or so of what he's doing, he's probably a Hall of Famer. Averaging 28 homers a year. The guy weighs, he's a pound for pound great. I think he's a top 100. You guys, I don't know the exact pound for pound figures for these guys, but he's 5'9", 190. Pretty thick guy. Interestingly, he hits a home run at the same pace from both sides. And his swing really does look so similar from both sides. There you can see, just good positioning. And there's really no flip in his lefty or righty swing. Look at that cushion that he does to buy himself a little bit of time. I don't know where he's from, but, if he's a Dominican, let's see where he's from here. If it says. Anyways, I'm guessing he's not from this country. He's probably maybe Dominican. I mean, these guys just hone a secondary cushion naturally because they play a lot of baseball. They're not doing, at least, I don't know if they're still like this. It looks like they're kind of changing their ways, unfortunately, and doing more of what we do in America now, with a lot of drilling and a lot of teaching of the kids. But probably when Ramirez was coming up, they were still on the basically the Sandlot program out there. They still do play a lot of. I think that's just in their culture where they play a ton of Sandlot baseball. There you can see the front humerus compression. Nice, not extreme connection at contact, but I've told you guys, connection at contact is a little bit less of a concern to me. It's, again, more of a correlated thing to a great swing that guys tend to be more connected at contact when they're lead arm dominant. But it's not something that it's not something that I would chase as I used to. I used to really, and that can work for people. It can work to just force a more connected position at contact. But I just don't think that that's really the way to go about it. I don't like any time that you're kind of trying to force positions, trying to look like somebody else. I think that you should, for the most part, just swing the way you want to do lead arm dominance. That's really kind of the main thing. All right, Chase Utley. Chase Utley was a decent baseball player. Being sarcastic, of course. Chase Utley. He was awesome. Let's see. Chase Utley. 117 OPS plus for his career. Um, 259 homers in 6,857 at bats. I don't know what that is at bats per home run, but he is a pound for pound great. I'm pretty sure about that. He bats left, throws right, so he is actually lead arm dominant, and just a solid player. He should be very proud of the career that he finished with. Let's take a look at his swing. Not a whole lot of front humerus compression, but this to me is probably someone who maybe was extreme in his lead arm dominance positions. Maybe a lot more like Griffey, let's say, but then maybe bought into a lot of what's being taught and maybe changed it just a little bit to kind of be more slappy, but still had quite a bit of that, of the lead arm dominance. He never lost that feel. That feel never, and you can hit really well like that. We're going to take a look at another guy, George Brett, later on, who has, I think, the same thing going on. Now, I don't know if that's the case with Utley, but it looks like he's like a hybrid between lead arm dominance and a little bit of throwing the hands out, too. You can see there. Nice connection at contact. And then zero flip in Utley's swing. Everyone knows how he kind of finished his swing like right here. He just never had that flip going on. Oh, Gurriel, what is it, Garcia? Let me see. Sorry, guys. What am I doing here? Who is this guy? You guys know who he is, and it's going to be in the headline and the title of this video. But gosh, I can't find his name right now. Let's see. Oh, Gurriel. Hold on. Bear with me. So you guys wanted to see Utley. That's funny. When I typed in, I think I was doing it wrong. I don't know. Anyways, okay, 82 OPS plus this year. That's not fantastic, but it looks like, he only had 54 at bats. Must be injured, huh? But fantastic hitter. Led the league in 2021 with a 319 average. I want to, yeah, and 15 homers. Averages about 17 homers a year. 107 OPS plus for his career. Hit 31 homers in 2019. Dude's a good hitter. Weighs 215. So we'd probably like to see his power numbers, boosted just a little bit. He did hit 31 in 1 year, so that's awesome. But averaging 17, I'd be interested to see, how can we improve his power numbers. Now, here he is, definitely taking the hands independent of the body rotation, kind of throwing the hands at the ball. But it looks like that was an extreme adjustment that he was doing. But even then, I would wonder, why is he so late? Is he so late and that's why he's bringing the hands to the ball like this? Or does he bring the hands to the ball like this and that just makes him look kind of late? You know what I mean? I don't know which one comes first here, if this is just the swing structure that he likes to do. But, this is a high and inside pitch, and people say, well, you can't get a whole lot of front humerus compression with a high and inside pitch. Well, yeah, you can. You just have to be on time. And obviously, you guys know this out there. Sometimes guys only need to kind of get going early, to start earlier, get their swing going earlier, and that changes everything. That, as many of you know, was the change that I always forget his name, Jose Bautista made. I mean, that's all he really did. He just got his swing started earlier. And I think what that really does is it gives you time to slot the bat, to basically drop the barrel on a flat plane. If you're not starting early enough, then it could be that it's causing you to not be able to slot the bat. That's kind of a luxury to slot the bat, if for lack of a better term. It's like you can only do that if you have a little bit of time. But it's completely necessary. And by slotting the bat, I mean dropping it flat and behind you. If you have enough time, then you can do that. But if you don't have enough time, then you're kind of rushing to the ball. Kind of like this would be an example of a movement of rushing to the ball. Again, I'm not saying that that's what he's doing there. That could just be the structure you want it to take. Here we are again. Beautiful flattening of the barrel. And that's kind of the main thing I like to see. I like to see the flattening of the barrel because, again, that shows me the invisible wave moving up your body. I can't see it. You can only feel it. But when I see the barrel flatten like this, it tells me that it's moving up through that lead side a good deal. Not that it's not in the backside at all, but you're getting a good amount of that wave moving up through the lead side. But there you can see, again, kind of taking the hands independently towards contact. So that might be but no flip. Look at that. No flip through the hit. So it's so weird. Swings have all sorts of different characteristics that make it kind of personal to the person who's swinging. It's almost like two swings are never exactly the same. Now here we have an extreme of what I like to see. Now who knows if this is an older swing or a newer swing, or if there was a swing change that happened. This could be an older swing, and he could be buying into conventional instruction. I mean, that could be for the reason for the rather poor year, but I don't want to say it was a poor year, really. But I don't know what happened this year. And it's only 54 at-bats. But you never know. He could be buying into conventional instruction, and maybe that's the reason for the swings that we just saw earlier. But look at this movement. This is beautiful. I wonder if this is more from his 31 homer year. That's a beautiful move right there. Notice the weight is on the lead side leg. And that's another thing. So many guys are leaning back on that back leg. I'm not saying throw all your weight to the front side irresponsibly and be completely off balance and, just go all in with your weight, but shift a little bit of weight to the front side. And if you're worried about being off on timing, just hone your secondary cushion. But it's worth it to get some weight to the front side. That's going to give you a lot more power into the hit. So beautiful, just beautiful swing right there. Look, he's completely off his back leg. But look at where the barrel's coming from, guys. That's beautiful. That's body controlled, and look at that wide fin. I would say also he needs to finish his swing. Forget first base, man. Finish your swing. George Brett. This is a real interesting swing. This is very typical of guys in the 80s. This kind of swing where, so many guys just bought into that Charlie Lau thing. And Brett, as you guys probably know, was a guy who was in Charlie Lau's book. The book that I read that was probably the first book on the baseball swing that I ever read. And honestly, there aren't that many, so it might even be the only one. But it told me all I needed to know about what they were teaching and what they even continue to teach. Unbelievably, Charlie Lau's book is still heavily influential in today's swing instruction. A lot of what you hear is just a bought-in mentality of what Charlie Lau wrote in his book. It's so bizarre, too. This is a guy who wasn't even a great hitter when he played. Not that that matters. I'm really against listening to the swing advice of great hitters or just major league players in general. These are not guys who are going to be experts in the swing. They had to perform day in and day out, and then when it was the off season, they probably took a break, for goodness sakes. I mean, they just played constantly. They have a few months to take a break. They're probably not guys who are extremely into studying the swing day in and day out. Had I been a career a major league player and played for 15 years or 20 years or whatever, I never would have I wouldn't have had the time to be into the swing. You can't be as inquisitive. I mean, it took me 20 years to feel like I finally figured out the swing. Like, what am I going to do? Just, try to perform with a mentality of like, man, I don't have this swing figured out. No, these guys have to be they don't really have time for analysis. So anyways, George Brett stayed way back on the back leg here. I don't think all this tension is necessary. I would rather just see him be more upright. And he did this thing where his hands really, here we are again, with the hands not moving very much into a backswing. Yet I think George Brett probably, I don't know, I would love to have seen high school swings of his. I would pay money to see high school swings of George Brett, because that would be kind of a before Lau, and then this would be an after Lau. Now, what I think happened to Brett is it was a very lead arm dominant guy. He was actually dominant in his lead arm also. He threw righty. And I bet you when he was in high school, his swing probably was Griffey-like. Not saying his stance and everything looked like Griffey. I don't know what his stance looked like. But these positions heading into the forward swing, I would bet he probably got his hands more behind him. But this is kind of moving towards a more careful way of doing it. And it's just odd. His particular swing action is very odd. It's like definitely a hybrid of lead arm dominance with some strange sort of hands to the ball as well. Because you can see there's a little bit of front humerus compression, but the bat's coming from a pretty steep angle. There's the front humerus compression, very steep angle bat, but I'm sure he's still feeling the lead side pathway. That is really the quintessential thing. You can almost look however you want, but if you feel that lead side pathway, I don't know what who knows what the percentages are, but let's just say typically guys feel maybe 20% of the lead side pathway and 80% of the backside pathway. Brett's probably at 60% lead side and 40% backside still, even though he bought into all this hands to the ball stuff, right? So the quintessential piece is still there, even though he's made swing changes. That right there, what I just said, is so key to understanding so much of what happens when guys make swing changes. I think of Tiger Woods' early 2000s when he was making swing changes, but there were things that were changing, but the quintessential piece that made him great was still intact. So he wasn't winning tournaments by 12 and 18 or whatever he won some of these majors by. He was just actually squeaking out a lot of these victories, but so he was definitely not as dominant, but the quintessential piece was still there. You can't say that later in his career. He started to actually make it swing changes. He got so lost in the forest of swing thoughts that actually the main lead arm, pathway that was there started to kind of dwindle, and he became more backside dominant, and he started to get taught things like have the hands more in front of the ball at contact, more back arm dominant actions, and like extend out towards the ball, and all this stuff that was very back arm dominant, he started to actually work into his swing. And then you saw him, like duffing drives and hitting beginner type slices, and it was just mind boggling what was happening to him in the 20 teens. But to me, it wasn't that surprising because I had been seeing him make all these swing changes, um, and wondering where is this going to end up because he just seems to be getting further and further from a good swing. Um, but Brett never really lost what made him great. The more I think about it, the more I think possibly Mike Schmidt. If you look at his drop off, it was so quick, and I feel like I've seen video of him really buying into what was being taught in the day. You hear him talk much later in his career about not swinging so hard, and you see him trying to take the hands more to the ball. And I wonder if that didn't really affect him later on in his career. He pretty much just dropped off, like 80, 86 and 87 and 88, I believe, and 89 maybe were his last years, and it was like it wasn't even close to what he was doing in the years before. It was a complete drop off. And I know guys get older, but my gosh, he still should have had some semblance of what he was doing before. Here you can see the hands to the ball kind of action, but also a bit of a just letting gravity take over and being more lead side dominant. When your lead side, if you notice when you swing with just your lead arm, a smaller bat, just your lead arm, you're going to notice that you just kind of use gravity. Your hands kind of drop onto the ball. It's like you're using gravity at the same time you're pulling it around. So it's like gravity and the pull around are both acting on the hands and the bat at the same time. And you can see that in Brett here. And look at this positioning. I mean, this is something you would expect that he got a ton of front humerus compression with a position like this at contact. It's just a very unique swing, and he got very unique results. I mean, what hitters can you name who had, let's look at his stats. Very few hitters had such a high average. I mean, the guy hit 390 in 1980, was flirting with 400 for much of the year, with 24 homers. Name someone who's like that. Like Rogers Hornsby is the only guy I can think of who's in that range. He just got weird results, and he's got kind of a weird swing. Looks like he never hit more than, oh no, he did. He hit 30 home runs, but mostly he hit 24 or under. But one year in 1985, he hit, was that an MVP year? No, he got second in MVP. That's a sick year right there. 335 with 30 homers. So, I mean, just an awesome hitter. And maybe Lau's stuff did give him a little bit more consistency. But I'm never in favor of like doing that trade of power for consistency, because I just feel like there's really no need to do it. I think all you're really doing is overall making yourself a less valuable hitter. But yeah, maybe you can increase your average a little bit, but I don't think it's worth the cost of power. But George Brett weighed around 185, 190. What a great career. I mean, this guy doesn't weigh that much and hit home runs at a very respectable pace. Ended up with a 305 batting average. So, I mean, you look at, he traded power for consistency, it seems like, buying into Lau's stuff. But it didn't do him any better than Hank Aaron. Maybe that's unfair to just compare him to Hank Aaron, but there's a guy who hit 305 for his career and yet, would hit double the home runs that George Brett hit. More than double the home runs that George Brett hit. So, I'm just not in favor of like doing that trade of power for consistency. Now people think that I'm just so like shallow for saying that. Like I just think OPS plus is basically what you're after. And I just look at Ted Williams, look at Babe Ruth, look at, Hank Aaron, Ken Griffey Jr. Now these are guys who had both power and consistency. Babe Ruth led the league in average. People don't realize what a high average he had. And he's kind of the he's kind of the standard that I look at. I mean, if it were necessary to trade power for consistency, then he would never have existed. I just think you have to consistently hit the ball hard to have both high power and high average. It helps, and Bill James talked about this in his books, how there is a crossover between power and batting average. And I just think that for both of them, the main goal is hitting the ball as hard as possible, as consistently as possible. You know, you can also go about average in the way of like slapping the ball, and somehow these guys like these guys in the '80s like Don Mattingly, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, I don't fully understand how they did it. Because even when I go back and watch their games, and as you guys probably know, I do watch a lot of the games from the 80s. And God, so many of Don Mattingly's hits are like lucky bloopers. I'm telling you, I don't know what. And same with Tony Gwynn. Like, they're these kind of slow ground balls that find a hole. I don't know. My latest, like, idea on that is maybe it's hand-eye coordination. And that is a skill within hitting. Maybe their hand-eye coordination was such that they figured it was worth it to structure their swing so that they're kind of ensuring solid contact and maybe even trying to place the ball sometimes. I don't know. But just ensuring solid contact, even though it's not a really big cut, they're ensuring solid contact, and with that solid contact, even if they don't hit the sweet spot of the bat, it's still solid enough to kind of find holes. Or even in Mattingly's case, go over the fence. Mattingly's kind of and he happened to be my favorite player growing up. I was a Mattingly nut, as many kids were from that era. I don't get how he put up his numbers, and then how he fell off the face of the earth so fast. And people say, yeah, he had back injuries. Sure, but I mean, maybe that is a bigger deal than I think, but it just seemed like he fell off the face of the earth pretty quickly. I mean, going from hitting, 35 homers with a 353 average, striking out like 30 times in a year or something crazy like that. The guy was nuts in 1985, 84, 86. So Matt Olson is the next guy. Matt Olson has an interesting start where you can't see it from here, but his hands are well out in front of him towards the opposite batter's box. And then he slowly backswings. This might be something for Kendall to try. Just keep him out like this and then slowly take a backswing. It's a very controlled, slow action into his backswing. I think it's a great move. There you can see it. It's just literally like a golf backswing. And then he just works it flows it in with his forward action. Beautiful action there. I would like to see a little bit flatter of a bat, and that would just be feeling more of the lead side pathway. But he's got a lot of lead side in his swing. There it is. There's the bat flattening out a little bit. But Matt Olson, no doubt, is buying into conventional instruction. So you do see with his swing kind of these hybrid positions. Here, you wouldn't know it because this is just beautiful positioning. This is pretty much exactly what I like to see. Again, the barrel could be flatter, but there you can see it flattens out. And then there he is at contact, a little bit extended. But he just is a little bit more extended at contact. And honestly, I think that has to do with the hybrid swing that he has because he's bought into a lot of... He thinks that what he's doing when he leaves the bat kind of behind and flattens it out, he thinks that's bad. I've heard him say that before. And so he's trying to correct that. So it could be, once again, this is why it gets so confusing looking at these guys because a lot of them are very naturally lead arm dominant, but they're buying into convention. And so they're moving the needle a little bit in their positioning, but the main thing that keeps them great has not yet disappeared, but it could someday, like it did with Tiger. And I'm sure it's doing with a lot of major leaguers. I just don't know about them. Jazz Chisholm. You guys wanted to see him too. here he is hitting some home runs in these next few swings. Let's see, by the way, how Olson did real quick this year. Matt Olson did not as well as he did last year. Looks like a 247 batting average, OPS plus of 118, which is well above average, but it's not like the 164 OPS plus that he had last year when he hit 54 homers. He did have 29 homers, though, which doesn't suck. But it's funny how guys, I mean, he almost doubled his home run. He almost in-halved his home run production this year. Also had a worse batting average. Guys, I wonder if Olson is just buying into convention. I haven't seen. It'd be interesting to look at his swing this year, but I would just love to know, because this looks like a guy who could be buying into conventional instruction and maybe getting worse because of it. But maybe there's an injury there that I don't know about. I don't know. He was 4th in MVP voting last year. Can you imagine that? You have 54 homers and you're 4th in MVP voting. Let's see Jazz. .107 this year, OPS plus. Batting average of 273, home runs 11. Only had 176 at bats. No, sorry, that's for the Yankees. So total he had, full year, 562 at bats and 24 homers. He averages 28 homers a year. And he had okay. So this is a guy who hits home runs on a very regular basis. He's 5'11", 184. That's what I would consider in the light range of players. So hitting home runs at that pace, you got to be doing something right mechanically. And there you can see no flip there. That's very lead arm dominant. The way that bat, notice the way he finishes there with just his lead arm, and there's no flip. That is very lead arm dominant kind of action to do. Oh, look at this angle. This is kind of cool. Look at that tilt towards, this is very Ruth-like, that tilt of the barrel towards the opposite batter's box and then bringing it back. That's also an option for you, Kendall. But look at how flat that barrel is. That's what I want to see. That's the key right there, guys. That's the main thing. Look at how flat that bat is. It's coming from below his back shoulder. Boom. Beautiful action, and then a wide finish. I mean, that is really an awesome action right there. Let's see what this one looks like. Nice front humerus compression there. Boom. Look at that. Beautiful. Man, this guy is like textbook, huh? This is very the swing mechanic kind of swing Chisholm has. So there you have it, guys. That's it. Hope you guys like this. Let me know your thoughts. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.